Okay, so you're thinking about moving to Central Park in Denver, but you got to figure out the schools and how they work. That's what we're going to teach you in this video. I've got the expert. Let's jump into it. Hey, I'm Joe Phillips here with Focus Real Estate and Central Park Scoop. And I told you I have the expert on schools in the area, and I do. So it's Keely Buchanan with Preparing for Denver Kindergarten. Keely is someone I met years ago, and I don't know, it's probably been about 8 to 10 years ago when I was maybe in your shoes trying to figure out how Central Park schools worked for our kids. We have 3 young daughters. It's a little bit daunting. When I grew up, you just lived here and you walked to the school that's right there, and that was it. That's not how it works here. Nope. So we're going to cover several topics related to schools in Central Park in this video. At this beginning part, though, I would like you to explain enrollment zones and what that even means for people.
Yes. So for most school districts in Colorado, your address that you're either renting or you own ties to one boundary elementary, one boundary middle, one boundary high school. That is not the case for certain parts of Denver. So the Denver Public School System, or DPS, actually has multiple enrollment zones for elementary and middle school. So if you move to Central Park and you move inside the Central Park enrollment zone, what that means is you're legally guaranteed a spot at one of the 6 Central Park enrollment zone elementary schools starting in kindergarten. But not necessarily your first choice and not necessarily the one you live closest to. So in other parts of Denver, like where I live near DU, your address ties to one boundary elementary. So that's your school. That's the school that's legally holding a spot for you. Here, you have 6 times the number of options than if you live in other parts of the city.
I'm going to stop you and ask one question.
Yeah.
So you get one of the 6 elementary schools, and you also then are guaranteed a spot in a middle school and a high school, right? So
Correct.
It's what? First grade through high school you're guaranteed, or is it kindergarten?
K through 12.
K through 12.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you live in Central Park, you're legally guaranteed a spot at one of the 6 Central Park Enrollment Zone elementary schools. And then when you get to middle school, you're legally guaranteed a spot at one of the 6 Central Park/Park Hill middle school enrollment zone schools.
Okay.
And then there's one high school right now that maps to Central Park, which is Northfield.
Okay, perfect. Before we go on, I want to mention that at the end, I'm going to give you a resource that will help you explain all of these things. You'll have all the answers and you'll have access to what you need. So don't feel like you got to take down a bunch of notes or don't get overwhelmed during this video.
Yes.
Even though we are going to give you a lot of details. And we wanted to. There's a lot of very short videos that you said you've noticed that talk about schools, but they really don't have any information.
Yes.
We're
going to give you all the information.
Yeah.
You will get overwhelmed.
Yep.
Then we'll give you the resources you need to be less overwhelmed.
Perfect. Before we get into the next topic, I just want to say that you're guaranteed a spot in one of the schools. And what I've seen multiple times with myself and with a lot of our clients in the neighborhood is you can get so into this process that you get stressed out and overwhelmed. You kind of forget that you're talking about kindergarten or second grade or whatever it is.
Yes.
And a lot of times you don't get your top pick. But I've found, and we personally got our 3rd choice that we had listed out in our priorities, and we're really, really happy with it.
Exactly.
And that's what's happened multiple times. Clients have reached out later and said, oh, you know what? We got our 2nd one. We were so upset. And then we ended up loving it. So all these options are good. So don't stress too much.
Yes, that's a great through line for Central Park. So all 6 of them are amazing in their own way.
Yeah.
Each of them are unique. Each of them have unique aspects. You really can't go wrong. The biggest question here is, do I really want to cross I-70? That's typically where I start with Central Park clients is, which side of 70 are you on? And do you want to cross that for schools? We typically start there and then move out from there.
To set the context, because this channel is really for people that are new to the area, not experienced Central Park folks. So Central Park, big neighborhood, I-70 is a highway that splits it pretty much right in the middle.
Yep.
So you've got the north side and the south side.
Yes.
So that's what she was referring to there. Okay, so that gives us the enrollment zone. That's helpful. Okay, so we talked about enrollment zones and how everybody's going to get a seat, kindergarten through high school. Now walk us through what school choice means. I'm sure a lot of these people doing some research on this are wondering what that term even means and how this works.
Dun, dun, dun. School choice. The big question. Yeah, so choice can feel pretty overwhelming and complicated, but it actually boils down to really just 2 elements. First of all, I'll take a step back. Choice for Denver opens in January and closes in February the year that you will attend. And that applies to whether you're looking at public preschool, which is called ECE, which stands for Early Childhood Education, all the way through 12th grade.
Okay.
Same deadlines, same best practices, same algorithm for choice. So choice opens in January and closes in February. There is no benefit to filling it out early other than peace of mind. You just want to make sure you make that February deadline, and that is round 1 of choice.
One quick question related to that. You do this the first time you're going into a school, but once you're there and you know your kid's going to be there for, say, 5 years, you don't have to redo that every year.
That is correct. So once you're in for kindergarten, you are into that school until 5th grade for sure. Unless you move out of the enrollment zone or potentially out of the district. But for the most part, once you're in for kinder, you're then there all the way through 5th grade. It's slightly different through 8th grade, but we can add a resource for that as well.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Go on.
So round 1 choice opens in January, closes in February, and choice is made up of really 2 elements. One is a randomly assigned lottery number between 1 and 1,000,000, and it truly is random. And that's where a lot of parents think choice ends. It's just a lottery. There's nothing you can do. It's a little bit more than that. So your randomly assigned lottery number is then used inside of that particular school's admission priority group, inside your admission priority group. What is an admission priority group? Every school creates a list, top to bottom, of admission priority groups. Typically, the top of that list, you're going to see siblings of admitted students. Could be students of full-time employees of the school. Could be students in an area with a high percentage of socioeconomic diversity, etc. So a really good pro tip here is you want to make sure to look up the admission priority groups for each of the 6 elementary schools inside of Central Park for that year, because they could change slightly year to year. But the school fills seats top to bottom by admission priority group, and we fill the seats in order of that lottery number. So if your lottery number is 999,000, but you're in the first admission priority group, you're going to get in before someone whose lottery number is 1, but they're in the second admission priority group. And we're going to fill the first admission priority group completely before we go to the second. And that's round 1 at a very high level.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to remind everybody to stick around at the end for the resource to not have to remember all this or learn it all yourself because it's very complicated. Okay, round 2. How does that work?
So round 1 is ideal. You want to do round 1 if you have that Central Park Enrollment Zone address, or even if you're coming from out of state and moving in and you know the schools that you're interested in, I would still recommend completing round 1. But round 2 opens after round 1 has completely closed. So just as a reminder, the way that we fill seats and then the way that we actually get our initial waitlist numbers is in round 1. And again, in order of lottery number inside admission priority groups. Once we communicate that to parents or once that's communicated out by DPS, then round 2 opens. And round 2 is designed for people who moved in to the zone after round 1 closed, who didn't complete round 1, or if you want to put a school, you want to try to get into a school that you did not list on your form in round 1, but the best practice is not to have to do both. You really want to do round 1, or if you cannot do round 1 or you don't have that address or you don't know the schools well enough yet, then you go ahead and do round 2. Round 2 is first come, first served inside of admission priority groups. So if you're in a high admission priority group, round 2 can work pretty well for you because you're actually going to step in front of everyone else on the wait list who is in a lower admission priority group than you are. So if you're in a high admission priority group, round 2 could work for you. But that also explains why wait list numbers go up and down after round 1. Because anyone who's in a higher admission priority group than you will step in front of you. And then you're like, wait a minute, my waitlist number was 14, now it's 16. You're like, the system's broken. You're like, no, it just means 2 people stepped in front of you who are in a higher admission priority group.
So if one school had round 1 finished and they had 8 spots open, and then it's, like you said, first come, first serve. So somebody comes and they get to, say, the top of that wait list, they are going to go ahead and let them know they're admitted and clear them off that list.
Correct. So the beautiful thing about round 2, so round 1 you submit in February, or before, but then you don't typically find out until April. So you have to wait a bit. Round 2, you get your waitlist number immediately. So you really want to complete round 2 earliest on that day as possible because it is first come, first served, but within admission priority groups. So yes, if someone fills out round 2 and they're in a higher group than you, they're going to step in front of you and they're going to push you down that wait list by at least 1.
When do they make those decisions, though, and push the people into those schools? Like,
So,
you don't have to wait as long, right?
Great question.
Okay.
Yes. So some schools start calling off of the wait list right away. And so you could actually start seeing some calls or some texts or some emails. It depends on your communication preferences when you complete choice. You could get calls off the wait list as early as April or May. We see some movement in the summer. It's really school specific.
Yeah.
A lot of the movement, though, unfortunately, happens in the fall, in August, and after school starts. So wait lists for K-12, kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, stay open until the end of September. But school starts in August.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you sit down with your partner and you talk through what will we do if and when we get a call after school has started, but our kiddo has started at a different school.
Yeah, that's really tough.
It is.
I won't ask why that happens. Because then, whatever.
Right.
Okay. So that is choice. Round 1 and round 2 within choice. That's very helpful. Okay, so we've talked about enrollment zone. We've talked about choice and what that is. Now let's go into ECE, early childhood education. We've talked mostly kindergarten through 12th grade. But give us some of the basics on ECE, especially in Central Park.
Yes, so what is ECE? That is stands for Early Childhood Education. It's just a fancy way of saying public preschool. There's a few things to know about public preschool. One is it's pretty rare, so not all schools have it. So in Central Park, for example, there's only one elementary school inside Central Park Enrollment Zone that has ECE 3, and that's Willow, formerly known as High Tech. And that ECE 3 program is only half day, which actually ends up being about 3 hours. It's real short.
Okay.
None of the other 5 elementary schools within Central Park have ECE 3. So you'd be looking outside of the zone for other ECE 3 options, or you'd be looking at private preschool. Another big thing to understand.
Quick question on that.
Yeah, please.
3-year-olds, ECE 3,
Oh, good question.
Basically 3-year-olds?
Yes, so the year that your kiddo is going to be 3 by October 1st, they can start ECE 3 in August of that year.
Okay.
So you have to be 3 by October 1st to start ECE in August. You have to be 4 by October 1st to start ECE 4.
Okay.
And you have to be 5 to start kinder by October 1st.
Perfect. Very helpful. Okay.
Great question. And that's a good point because a lot of families moving in to Central Park from outside of the state could be moving from states with a really different cutoff.
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand that Colorado is only one of 4 states with such a late cutoff. Most states cut off September 1st or September 14th. So it's a little bit different here.
Okay. Perfect. I feel like I cut you off, so
no, you're
keep
fine.
going.
I got excited. ECE. So the other thing to consider is hours. So public preschool doesn't typically offer the same hours as a private preschool. So a lot of the clients that I work with in Central Park or outside Central Park, if they have 2 parents who work outside the home or remotely at the moment, they actually need an extended day. They really need private preschool that starts as early as 6:30 and that goes to sort of 5 or 6 in the evening. That's actually very difficult to find in DPS in general.
Yeah.
But one of the benefits of Central Park, and there are many, not only that you have 6 amazing elementary schools to choose from, but one of them is for many of the elementary schools in Central Park that do offer ECE 4 full day, which is about 6 to 7 hours, sometimes 8. Many of them also offer separately before and after care for their 4-year-olds, which is actually pretty rare. So that's another benefit, but just know that that's not something that is guaranteed to you. It's handled separately from the school, so you do choice for enrollment, you try to get into a 4-year-old program, and then separately you would try to sign up for before and after care, which is relatively rare. So it's not a guarantee that you'll be able to have that extended day. If your needs are 6 to 7 hours a day, then you could probably make an ECE 4 full day work without before and after care.
Okay. And you said you're not guaranteed a spot in ECE in general, so if you had to just ballpark a percentage of people that get in, what would you guess? And I know it goes up and down, and it's a guess.
I had $1 for every time I was asked that question. So I do have some stats for kinder. So last year, I think 84% of Central Park Enrollment Zone kindergartners got their first choice inside the zone.
Okay.
So it's actually quite high, a lot higher than most people think.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at the stats for last year, but it's been pretty consistent in the low to mid 80%. For ECE, simple supply and demand.
Yeah.
long story short, the way that we handle number of kiddos that can be in an ECE class is really different than kindergarten. You can only have, per state law, a certain number of kids in a class. So you might only have 10 seats for ECE4, and you might have 30 for kinder. So that just leads to this supply and demand issue. So I would say for my Central Park Enrollment Zone parents who want to get into ECE4 full day, I would say if half of them get offered a seat, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
So you really need to have a private preschool backup, but I recommend doing both. Do choice for ECE and also get on some wait lists for private preschool and then see what happens after round 1.
That makes sense, and it makes sense why there's a bunch of private preschool options in the area.
Dozens you could throw a stone
filling that gap.
from here.
There are a lot. Still hard to get into from what I hear, but that'll be a topic for a different video. But those are some great basics on ECE. All right, well, I think that's enough about schools in general for now. I don't know if anybody wants to watch too long of a video about schools, but before we go, we wanted to give you some of those resources that we promised up front. So Keely, tell us about some of the DPS resources that people can use to learn more as they research the schools.
Absolutely. So we use a lot of terms, probably new terms today. So just to follow up on some of that. First and foremost, I'll tell you that the DPS enrollment office is amazing. So you can reach out to them. We'll make sure we post the phone number, the email address so that you can start there. They have some Central Park Enrollment Zone experts that can help you when you're moving and can break down some of this for you as well. You certainly want to be able to look up admission priority groups for each of those 6 schools. You want to be able to look at the websites for each of those 6 schools and just kind of take a look around. You can look at scorecards. So I get this question a lot. What is a good school? What's a bad school? It's not really a question I can answer, but what I can tell you is all 6 of the elementary schools in Central Park are great in their own way and unique, and you can learn more about them in my class. But you can go to the Colorado Department of Education website and you can look at scorecards there. So I don't necessarily recommend that you look at Redfin or Great Schools. I recommend you go right to the state website because you can look at achievement scores, you can look at growth, which is my favorite, and you can look at overall, or you can dig really deep into what they call SPF, or School Performance Framework scores, for every single public school in the entire state, elementary, middle, and high.
Okay.
And also what I find really unique about DPS, because I work with clients in almost every district in the state at this point, is DPS makes it really easy to find the information you need about schools. So they publish 5 years, so I love to look at a 5-year trend. They publish how big the school is. They publish socioeconomic diversity numbers, racial diversity numbers. They publish choice information. They publish the number of students in each grade. And you can also take a look at where students are going from middle school from an elementary school. And DPS publishes all of that on their site. We'll make sure to get a resource for that as well. And then the last thing I'll say on resources is we're looking at surveys. So you can actually look at student feedback for a school, for students who are in 3rd grade and above, and you can look at parent feedback for a school. So I really like to take a look at that, and the best part about it is you can take a look at what percentage replied. So I'm going to take the results I find a lot more seriously if more than 70% of parents actually filled out that survey.
Yeah.
And then the student piece is just kind of interesting to take a look at how those scores compare contrast.
That's great. Tons of resources. We're going to put those in links in the description below. But the main resource that I want you guys to take advantage of is actually Keely herself. This is what Keely does, and hopefully by watching this 10-15 minutes of video, you can clearly see her knowledge level in this is really, really deep. So you can, for your child, try to figure all this out and navigate this process for the first time and hopefully make it work. Or you can use Keely and her business, and this is what they do. So walk us through the different ways that people can work with you to just get in your head and get all that expertise for their kids.
Yeah, so you can figure this all out yourself if you want to. I don't think you want to.
No.
So if you want to work with me, then you have a couple of options. So number one is I teach classes every month. And every other month, I actually teach an entire 4-hour class specific to the Central Park Enrollment Zone. So we deep dive in the 6 elementary schools. We get real deep into how choice works because the way that Central Park does it is slightly different than even other enrollment zones inside DPS, because of course. So we dig really deep into that. And it's really a one-stop shop. So we look at summer camp. We look at before and after care. We look at if you have a kiddo with an August or September birthday, are they ready to start kindergarten? We look at round 1, we look at round 2, we look at wait lists, And we dive into all of the different types of schools inside of DPS. Another really great thing about DPS is all of the different types of schools. You've got enrollment zone schools, you've got lottery schools, we've got Montessori, expeditionary, innovation, dual language, French, Spanish, and Mandarin. It's really interesting how many options you have here, but it can be really overwhelming. So I teach a 4-hour class every month that's designed for parents with kiddos between the ages of sort of 2 and kinder, or if you're moving into the area and have older kiddos, all the same deadlines and best practices would apply. And then I work with parents after that class who want to do a private consultation. Or some parents just dive right into the private consult,
Okay, so they can go
absolutely,
straight to that if they want.
especially parents moving in.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's a
They
lot
gotta
better.
get it done. They gotta,
Absolutely. They're like, we don't know what we don't know. We don't want to do 4 hours on a Saturday, but we do want to book 4 to 5 hours with you to really understand all of our options.
Yep.
So classes and private consultations as well. And then I also work with parents who are looking to hire tutors, remote teachers, language tutors, things like that. It all kind of overlaps in that area.
Great. Huge resource. Really highly recommend Keely. A lot of people have come back really happy from those classes, and they just feel peace of mind knowing, okay, we have a plan, and when we hit some bump in the road, we got somebody we can call. Keely, thanks for all that information.
Absolutely.
I hope that helps you find great schools for your kids in the Central Park neighborhood, and see you in the next video. Thanks.
Thanks.